Welcome to PRELUDE 2018. My name is I'm the curator of this year's festival. So pleased that you're all here tonight for this studio visit. So this studio visit with Kristine, Haruna, and Ogawa for Suicide Forest. Yes. The studio visit is a format that we introduced last year with PRELUDE, and we have 5 this year as well. So there's another immediately following this studio visit with Dan Safer in the Segal. The idea is to take a project, honestly by an artist or artists that I love, but to take a project that is at a critical moment in its development and to be as generous as possible with the audience. For the artist to share a bit of how they got to this moment, where they're going next, how they compose, for them to share some of what they're working on, and then we also together decide on someone who we want to invite into this moment in this evening to create what we call a critical response, but really it is their own elaboration on a theme or an idea in whatever form they choose. And so Diep Tran tonight is here with us as the critical respondent. So the way that it'll go tonight is, as I said, they'll give some introduction, we'll see a bit of the work, we'll hear from Diep, and then we'll also have a chance for a conversation with you all. And that is the evening. And without further ado, I'll turn over to you. Thank you.
Hello, I am Kristine.
Hi, I'm Maya.
So we were asked to put together this 20-minute PowerPoint presentation, and in trying to find a starting point, we realized that it was really important to ground this conversation in these 3 questions that we had asked ourselves when we kind of dove into this play. So the 3 questions are, what is your relationship to Japan? What is your relationship to the US? And what is your relationship to theater? And I'm gonna go first. So my relationship to Japan is really connected to my relationship to my mother, who's a native Japanese woman. And that relationship fluctuates between being really strong and being really fraught. And so my relationship to Japan also mirrors that as well. My father was a Taiwanese-American man, and so I was born in Hong Kong and then moved to Japan and was there until the age of 8 or 9. And we were moving back and forth between the States and Japan a lot during that time. But after my dad died, my mom decided to relocate us to Seattle altogether, and that's when my relationship to Japan really shifted. And the biggest shift was that I lost my connection to the language, so my Japanese really kind of stopped at that level, and I'm very aware and conscious of that, of my elementary Japanese skills. But I feel inside Japanese, I feel really that I have an authentic connection to Japanese culture, and the images, it's kind of embedded in me growing up there. And I still watch Japanese TV and movies, and I love anime. But if I were asked if I could live there, my answer would be no. My relationship to the US, this is my mom when she was 30. My relationship to the US is a little harder to explain. I would say that I am undeniably American, and I guess again it kind of goes back to language. I just speak English better than I speak Japanese. And when I think of America, I think of my memories growing up in Washington State on this island called Mercer Island. And just my childhood trying to fit into this unapologetic suburban whiteness constantly. And that experience to me is undeniably American. Okay, my relationship to theater, I'm just going to jump and say my relationship to it now, which is I really identify as an all-around theater maker. I guess I'm more gravitating towards playwriting and performing these days. This is a picture of my company, Haruna. We're 8 designers and also theater maker types, and these guys really help me to visualize and also produce the plays that I've written up until now. But lately, I've been kind of splintering off from the company, but with their blessing, which is kind of an amazing thing, and I've been forging these new relationships that feel dangerous and challenging, and my relationship with Aya really falls into that category. And what else? I think, yes, and just sitting through the discomfort of change, changing my practice and changing the change that's going on in my relationship to my identity too, as my work keeps getting more and more personal.
That's me and my mom and my brother. So I was born in Japan, but my story is pretty similar to Kristine's. We moved back and forth a lot. I grew up learning both English and Japanese at the same time. I did live in Japan when I was in elementary school, and then went to an American school in Japan, so that was confusing. But actually not so confusing. When I lived in Japan as a Japanese person, I felt very Japanese, and I felt ownership over that cultural identity, and I really had no questions about it. That's what it's like to live in the dominant culture of a place. And when I was a preteen, we moved to California, and it happened to be a pretty predominantly white place, and that was like the year Top Gun came out, and to just give you reference time. And for Halloween, I really wanted to be Cyndi Lauper, but I really had no idea how. I just kind of put my hair up in like a weird ponytail, and people were like, "Who are you?" And I'm like, "I'm Cyndi Lauper. Can't you tell?" So that was the kind of way that this conflict or tension with the culture that I lived in manifested. And Kristine talks a lot about this kind of erasure in her work, and but yeah, I feel like we went through very similar upbringing. I also went through a period where I didn't speak any Japanese for maybe like 5 years because I had no need to. I didn't have any Japanese friends, and my parents would speak to me in Japanese, I would speak to them in English, and I thought that I would never have a relationship with my home country after a certain point. But then that changed, actually. So I started doing theater. I identify, I guess, as like much like Kristine does, like as a writer / director, even though I started as a performer. And I found that in the theater, where transformation was the currency, I was allowed to kind of, through inhabiting other characters, be myself. And I found a great sense of liberty and comfort in that, and that's why I stuck to doing it. My parents, however, were horrified, and they persistently discouraged me. They said, you're only gonna be playing maids and prostitutes, so you really should stop this now. They would go behind my back. My mom would go behind my back and go to my high school drama teacher and say, "Please stop casting Aya because I don't want you to encourage her to go into this field anymore." Nevertheless, here I am. And so I've been making my own plays. I've centered often in my plays an Asian female protagonist because that is my world. That's my world. And my way of kind of changing the things that I cannot change is by making my work and presenting it to the world. So, Kristine, yes, where did this play come from?
I wrote this play in grad school at Brooklyn College under the tutelage of Matt Wellman and Erin Courtney, who's here right now. Hi, Erin. And it was after I encountered Audrey and Kennedy's Funny House of the Negro, which I think Erin assigned to me. And what struck me was Audrey and Kennedy's ability to kind of just dive into this very dark black femme identity. Unapologetic, just charging in there, and that was so inspiring. And so I kind of gave myself that task, and what emerged was this play titled Suicide Forest, which was a reflection of kind of the deepest, darkest parts of my Japanese and Japanese American identity. How did we meet?
Well, I had known of Kristine peripherally for probably about 10 years. I've seen her as a performer in other people's shows. I knew her as a creator, as a writer and director. And I think we were probably Facebook friends. But one day, I got an email from her, and she was like, I wrote this play, Suicide Forest, and I have an opportunity to have it staged as a reading at the Bushwick Star. Do you want to direct it? And so she sent me the play.
Thus began the history of our collaboration. Why did I reach out to Aya?
Why did you reach out to me?
I reached out to Aya because honestly she was one of the only Japanese directors, women directors, that I knew of. It was really unplugged from the Japanese theater community, and I knew through this other Japanese artist named Shirotama Hitsujiya. And also, Aya, from Facebook photos and whatnot, she was the only person I knew who was this Japanese woman with an asymmetrical haircut and piercings, and my impression was that maybe she would understand this play and what I'm doing with it, because I knew of her as a foreign badass.
How did I feel about Kristine? So Kristine reached out to me with the script, and first of all, before I read the play, I was like, well, why is she sending me the script? Why doesn't she just direct it herself? She's a director. I'm a director and a playwright. I typically write and direct my own plays. I've never had the desire, really, to step into somebody else's work because it's a lot. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of labor. And there's just so much more room for misunderstandings and things to slip through. I mean, the reason I became a director of my own work was because at the beginning I was like, I'm a playwright, I'm going to give my play to somebody else, and they fucked it up. So I was like, oh, wow, that's not going to happen again, I'm going to do it. So with Kristine, I was like, I don't know about this, I'm not sure. I read the play, and I was like horrified. It made me feel really disgusted, like my heart was pounding. I was revolted and also fascinated, and I was like, okay, I can't deny this visceral reaction that I'm having. And I know that as shocking as some of the subject matter and the things that are happening in the script are, the reason that I'm reacting to it like this is because she's trying to delve really deep into something that's that's very, very personal. And I felt that perhaps I was in the position to serve the play, serve her process kind of as a mirror and helper.
What I remember about our first meeting is that, what I remember most is that I had called this play a translation, and it just broke open my understanding of the play. I was at the time kind of confused and grappling with the play being, for me, really authentically Japanese, and yet it was written completely in English for an English-speaking audience, and that was really, really confusing. And when I called it a translation, in that moment, it felt like both things could exist at once.
And what I meant by that really is not that, like, oh, your English is broken and that's why it sounds like a translation. I was pointing at a specific style of writing that Kristine has, that there's like a dissonance in the text stylistically that I was really interested in. And the more we talked about it, we were like, okay, well, how can we present this dissonance? How can we like take it a step further and create space for actually Japanese to be in the text? How much Japanese? How much English? How do we translate it? When do we not translate it? So that has been part of the exploration for us in terms of pushing the text forward. And that kind of led to another question, which was, you know, well, for this reading that we have coming up at the Bushwick Star, how are we going to cast it? You know, it would have been pretty easy, I think, between the two of us to come up with 10 Asian American actors that we knew and loved to cast the play. But we were like, well, wait a second. Is there something to explore by trying to find specifically Japanese actors, not Japanese American, but Japanese actors whose native language might not be English? And can we use their kind of grappling with the language as something that elevates or points to this stylistic thing that's happening already in Kristine's text?
I want to give us a time check. We have 4 minutes, so we're going to whiz through the rest. So our creative team also, you know, we're looking for people who are sensitive to the room, and we've been working with Japanese heritage cast. There's just so much more listening that needs to happen in the room, and so in looking for our creative team, not coincidentally, we have a team of all women, femme-identifying folks, and they're mostly Asian as well. And one of the people that we're really excited to be working with is Denise Shumei, who is a producer, but she hates that word and would rather be identified as a project manager. And through Denise, she's really pushed us to think of what engagement would look like, engagement with this community that's kind of budding or unfolding through the process of the play. How do we continue that engagement past the production, the life of the production? So I'm just going to whiz through. And so we came up with these this ancillary series, which is these events and conversations that are happening alongside the play that are centering Asian American and Asian diasporic perspectives. And the first one we had was really recently, last week on September 30th. It was a potluck with 24 Asian women, trans, femme, non-binary performance makers. And we spent 3 hours together grounding our bodies and dreaming about what support around our own artistic growth would look like within this community.
And how we can organically support support each other's work. And the second one that we have planned, that will be coming up in the spring, is an intergenerational conversation. So Kristine is going to be performing in this play, as is her mother, who is a Buto dancer based in Seattle. So Kristine and her mother will be one of several pairings that we'll have around that conversation.
Which kind of leads us to the play itself. So we've been developing this for 2 years in this way. The play is written in 2 parts. The first part takes place in 1990s Japan and follows this salaryman and a schoolgirl. And they are drowning in this nightmarish Japanese society that is kind of upholding conformity above all else. And they're clawing at their self-worth in a culture where selflessness is dominant. And so, a lot of stuff happens. Their paths cross, and then one of them makes it out and the other one is caught in that world. And then the second part, we're catapulted into the suicide forest where there is a clan of goats and this forest spirit named Mad, played by my mother, Dancing Buto. And this is the spoiler alert, the schoolgirl, played by myself, makes it into this forest. And from there, the play kind of takes this hard turn and it just becomes kind of a real-time conversation with my mom. That's the play. And the themes. I will just talk about one theme. So in considering like the dark matter of my Japanese identity, the thing I was drawn to the most was this the honorable act of suicide historically in Japan, and this kind of erasure or elimination of oneself really resonated with me growing up as an Asian American woman, and it made me think about the ways I have erased myself over and over and over again growing up. And it also made me think about all these Asian tropes, this weak-willed, submissive, hypersexualized, kind of fetishized object, person. And so the play, just lays that bare and then hopefully kind of tears it apart too.
And the thing that I love about this play is that it really tells a kind of story of the immigrant experience, but from a completely new and different angle. And it resonates so deeply with me, and I'm certain with a lot of people. The way I've described this play to potential collaborators is that, the first act takes place inside of Kristine's uterus, and the second act flips it inside out. It's that kind of like visceral, dark, sexual kind of dark matter that she's getting at, and something that you don't often see. So what we're going to see tonight is 3 scenes. They don't go in this sequence in the actual play, but I thought that this would be 3 scenes that would be interesting to show tonight in this context. And they feature the amazing performers Keizo Kaji, Sonoko Kawahara, Yuki Kawahisa, Kristine Haruna, and Dawn Akemi Saito.
And we'll be doing the full production of this piece at the Bushwick Star in association with my theater company, and it'll open February 27th and run through March 16th. So please come check us out.
Cool. So enjoy.
はい。
失礼します。Sir, there's a client here to see you.
For me.
They're young girls. They say they are here for an interview.
Are you sure they are here for me?
Yes, they are very young.
Which is it? Are they clients or are they young?
They are young.
I would like to see it with my own eyes. I'll be the judge of that.
Sir, do you think I'm young?
What?
Am I young enough for you, sir?
You're fine just the way you are.
Would you like to taste me to make sure? Are you a pervert, sir? I can see it in your eyes. They got bigger when I mentioned the word.
You can talk to your spirits like that.
Tell me, what you're thinking of, old man?
Old man?
I said, what are you thinking of in that disgusting, perverted little brain of yours? Do you imagine my thick black bush bulging out of the sides of my panties? Do you suddenly bending me over your desk? Do you touch yourself while smelling my old high school gym shorts? Do you imagine me held down with octopus legs squirming into my folds? Is that what you're thinking about? Did I say you can think of those thoughts?
Oh, no.
That's right. You didn't ask for my permission, bad boy.
I'll never think it again.
You will never think it again because I said so.
I'll never think it again.
I own your imagination.
You. Oh, my imagination.
I destroy your imagination.
You destroy my imagination. Please destroy me.
Sir?
Go ahead. Bring them in.
Oh, I'm supposed to remind you, the company retreat is coming up. I'm taking a survey on what people would like to eat for dinner. Would you like fish or meat?
What's that?
Fish or meat?
I don't plan on attending this year.
Oh no, why not?
My wife is very sick.
I'm so sorry to hear that.
Yes.
But everyone wants you to be there and the boss said you must, so fish or meat?
Neither.
So just vegetables?
No, that's not what I
Got
think.
it. I'll have you down for just vegetables. I'll go ahead and bring in the girls now.
mother said you cannot wear those outside anymore.
Mother doesn't care what we wear.
Of course she cares. She's your mother. You should be in uniform whenever you're outside. That's the acceptable form.
パパの意地悪。
ねえ、パパ why is Mama always sick?
What?
That's because she's depressed.
何それ
It means she's broken. And that's why she's going to kill herself.
Don't talk about your mother like that!
You're scaring me!
Daddy!
Calm down. Papa が悪かった。
Daddy, can we please have our allowance now?
Huh? What did I say about that?
But honey...
You can't stay in high school forever. You will have to find jobs so you can meet suitable husband.
I don't care what's outside of high school. I'd rather die than not be in high school.
Don't you think you're too old for games? Who's your friend?
This is our friend, Azusa.
She's so small.
Say something.
Your name is Azusa.
Can we please have our allowance now, Dad?
Yeah, of course.
Do you have a penis, Dad?
Yes, no, okay.
Thank you, Daddy.
May I? You're so helpless. You can't do anything for yourself, can you? Will you break if I touch you? Are you okay? Are you eating now? Have you done your morning exercises? as your whole life is ahead of you. And it's full of rainbows. You will make eggs for your husband. And remember the kids you had. And your wedding day. Fuck! Stupid! No! No! Beautiful.
Mommy's recipe.
Show me, I'll try. Taste like money.
Azusa-chan, yes? Do you think you will be a good mom when you grow up?
Don't ask her that. You know, she doesn't really have a mom.
It's okay if I ask, right, Azusa-chan?
Honestly, I don't think I'd be good at it.
Oh, really? Because you're so nice.
Nice?
What happened to your mom again?
She disappeared when I was 8.
But how? Did she get abducted? Or she ran away?
She said she needed to get some Diep Tran from the supermarket, and then she walked out without her class or jacket and left the front door wide open, and we never saw her again.
Oh, I just got
They make me so sick. I want to cry. Oh, poor Azusa-chan. I can't believe what you've been through.
Yeah, that sucks, Azusa. I'm sorry.
Soda. Did you guys hear about the new video game?
What game?
It's called Love Me.
What?
It's a game where boys can have a romantic relationship with a girlfriend character on a screen.
And how do you even play that?
The boyfriend earns points by doing really nice things for the girlfriend, like helping her with her homework or buying her presents for her birthday. And then the girlfriend rewards him by being really sweet to him.
Is that how a relationship works? I don't get it. She's not even real.
But you want to know the best part? Her name is Azusa-chan.
That's hilarious! Imagine all those chapins and nerds playing with Azusa.
Why would they choose my name? Oh, because your name is so pure and girly.
And it sounds like perverted. Azusa, like the name of a girl who fuck an old man for a Gucci purse.
Stop, that's so embarrassing.
Hey, does game go something like this? Azusa, throw this away.
She did it?
Azusa, hold my back.
Azusa, tell me. Good morning, my darling.
Ohio, Daddy. Azusa, tell me, good night, my dear.
Oyasuminasai, darling.
Azusa, bark like a dog.
Azusa, chirp like a bird.
Azusa, act like a monkey. Azusa, apologize to me.
ごめんね。
Also, apologize harder.
ごめんなさい。
Even harder.
すみません。
Harder.
許してください。
Azusa, tell me you love me.
愛してるよ。
Again.
愛してる。
Again.
愛してる。
Again.
愛してる。
Again.
愛してるぞ。
Azusa, take off your skirt.
What?
ちょっと行き過ぎじゃん。
Do you? Don't you love me? If you love me, then you just do what I say and take off your skirt. Take off your fucking skirt. Azusa, take off your panties. やりなよ。
Azusa, show us your private part.
Azusa, your vagina.
Azusa, your flower.
Azusa, your purity. Do it.
Do
Do it. Do it. Do it. Do it.
I can't believe she did it.
Yes, sir. Put the streak over your head.
right now, I really want to tell you about the time, one of the first times I felt deeply turned on. It was in my childhood home in Seattle. It's late at night, and flipping through the cable, and this movie, Boys Don't Cry, comes on. You know it? Yeah. For those of you guys who don't know it, it's this 1999 biographical film about the life of a young trans man named Tina, played by Hilary Swank, and it follows the tragic story of his murder in this small town, and it's really devastating. There's this one sex scene that takes place between Hilary Swank and Chloe Sevigny outdoors, and it's really hot. And so at the time, I popped in a VHS and recorded this scene. And once the movie was over, I replayed it over and over again and masturbated to it in my living room, of all places. But also in this living room is this white built-in bookshelf that spans the entire wall. And on one of the shelves is my dad's ashes in a wooden box with a outside, and my mom with these white lilies beside it. So I'm touching myself in this living room, watching Hillary and Chloe getting it on, and then I'm also simultaneously conscious of my dad's spirit and his ashes. And I'm thinking, is he here in this room right now, watching me? And before I can even begin to erase this heinous image, I fucking came. I'm like kind of sick, like total pervert with daddy cakes, and I guess these days, I want all the bad things. So you can just call me dirty sub-slut with big dick energy, put it in all my holes. I'm imagining bending you over right now. Yeah, that's my power move. And I just can't be so quiet and nice anymore because, fuck, their mouths spouting words like dating Asian women is a white nationalist rite of passage. I mean, fuck, that's so painful. And I would seriously hurt your fuck if you try to pull that shit on me. But if you want to know my real kink, it's that I want to deserve it all the pain that is mine. And my cum isn't clear and white, no, it's like deep, dark secretion, like amber molasses pouring out of this purple-brown body. And I'll feel this, and I'll release this, and I'll come on a dick or fingers with equal pain and pleasure just like that. Many times. Many times. Many times. Many times.
So it is now my pleasure to introduce Diep Tran, who is the senior editor of American Theater Magazine, and she is going to respond.
Mic's on. All right. Can you all hear me? Awesome. Woo! All right. I don't know how I'm supposed to follow that. But we're just gonna
Thank you, Kristine, for asking me to do this. I have no idea why. I'm not Japanese, I'm Vietnamese. I've never been to Japan, though I would like to one day. That would be awesome. And it's an honor to have shared the stage with such amazing, fierce women. And when I was asked to write the critical response to this, one of my first responses was, you know, I'm not a performer. I don't, you know, my bread and butter is like you don't actually have to look at me to consume what it is I do. I'm a journalist and I write essays, and so looking at me is not a prerequisite for doing and for enjoying what it is that I do, which I prefer that you don't actually. But they said you could respond in any way that you choose. And so, because Kristine is getting so personal with this piece of hers, I thought I'd do the rare thing that I normally don't do, and get personal with all of you. And it's gonna be uncomfortable for me. It's probably gonna be uncomfortable for you. It's gonna be even more uncomfortable for me. So, yeah. So, I was reading the play, and then this part really stood out to me. It was, in the play, Azusa asked Madman, what is it to become a woman? And this is going to be my attempt to answer that question because it is fucking hard right now. So, I've been bleeding every day for the past month. From my because, like 62% of fertile women, I am on birth control. Mine's called an Nexplanon. It's a 2-inch plastic rod that is implanted into your arm. And you set it and forget it. It's over 99% effective at preventing pregnancies, even more effective than getting your tubes tied. Like that. And so what it does is, I was a big Lord of the Rings fan growing up, and so I kind of like to compare it to the sperm is the Balrog, and the Nexplanon is Gandalf standing on the bridge saying, "You shall not pass." The side effects are relatively mild, mood swings, weight gain, headaches, acne, depression, and, well, random bleeding. And sometimes the random bleeding lasts for, centuries. It feels like it's been centuries. And then you feel so sexy that you don't want to have sex with anyone, which is a really great way of preventing pregnancy. So when you're on the Nexplanon, or any kind of birth control that turns you into a cyborg, your period goes from monthly inconvenience, like your credit card bill, to Jack Nicholson in The Shining. Why am I telling you all about this stuff that's happening in my body right now? There's something about having blood come out of your vagina for a month straight that really puts you in touch with your body. It's kind of like getting diarrhea. The kind where you realize it's about to happen and you're praying to God that you'll make it to the bathroom in time before you shit yourself. And then before shitting your pants, you may have thought that you were the master of your own body. And then you realize that sometimes your body will do things that you can't control. And you will be powerless in the face of biology. Women are used to feeling powerless. We've been feeling it every single month from when we were 11 or 12. And every month, half of the world's population bleeds. We don't talk about it, we cover it up, but we still bleed. Isn't that one hell of a metaphor? I just finished reading this book called Pachinko by Min Jin Lee about Koreans living in Japan in the mid-20th century. It was purely coincidental. I had started reading the book around the same time that Aya reached out to me saying, "Hey, do this thing." I'm like, "Oh, good." And I would like to read one passage to you. All her life, Sunja, I heard the sentiment from other women. Suffer as a girl, suffer as a wife, suffer as a mother, die suffering. Go sick. The word made her sick. What else was there besides this? That is a great fucking question. I think we are all so unaware of how much pain most women are in and how much women have been socialized to not talk about it. Because if we do, we're not taken seriously. We're told we're exaggerating, PMSing, or lying. And there have been studies that show doctors prescribe less pain medication to women than men after surgery, even though women report more frequent or severe pain levels. And women are more likely to be told our pain is psychosomatic. And did you also know that the United States has the highest rate of women dying after having babies in the developed world? So I'll give you an example of how women's pain, and how it's like minimized. I've been asked why I don't have an IUD. For the people with penises in the room, an IUD is a T-shaped plastic device that's inserted into your uterus. It's like an Excavating, and that turns your body into the sperminator and is crazy effective, but the only difference is it lasts 5 or 10 years, and the Excavating only lasts 3 years. I actually did have an IUD. In 2012, while in a long-term relationship where I really didn't want to have condom sex with my boyfriend anymore, and I really didn't want to have to take the pill every day at the exact time, otherwise it all goes to shit, I decided to get an IUD because it was covered by my insurance. Thanks, Obama. My doctor, Dr. McDaniel, told me that during it would feel like a pinch, and afterwards there may be cramping. I thought, cramping, I could handle cramping. I've been cramping every month since I was 12. I have a PhD in period cramps. So there I am, lying on the exam bed, my feet in the stirrups, and my legs spread wide, and Dr. McDaniel inserts the clamps, that familiar cold feeling that doesn't suck any less even after 9 years of pap smears. The clamps click, I'm dilated, I feel cold air in my vagina, which is usually not normally aired out in such a way. It kind of feels like when you take your shirt off on a hot summer day. Then Dr. McDaniel tells me she's going to numb my cervix. She takes a needle, the biggest needle I've ever seen, and suddenly I feel like someone just took a bite out of my cervix. And then there's nothing. Then I just feel the odd pressure of something going in where it's not supposed to be going in, and it doesn't feel unpleasant, but it doesn't hurt. And then it's done. She snips the strings of the IUD and tells me to put my finger up in there every so often to check to make sure it's still there, because sometimes it can fall out. Apparently, it is much easier for an IUD to go out than it is to go in, kind of like the inverse of childbirth. And afterwards, I'm given half a bottle of pain meds, which was considerate because, oh, holy shit, did I feel pain. And I recently learned that my doctor giving me 5 whole prescription-grade pain pills was atypical. Some doctors just tell their patients to take an Advil. The same stuff you take for regular period cramps, except if regular period cramps feels like someone is squeezing your gut with their hand. An IUD cramp is someone squeezing your gut and they have long acrylic nails and they decide to twist. Fucking Advil isn't going to help. That pain requires an exorcist. Or an epidural. And if you're a black woman, studies show that you're less likely to be taken seriously when you are in pain. I'm lucky that every OB/GYN I've ever had has been a woman of color. And then a month later, I'm hunched over in my bathtub as my uterus is contracting, and then I give birth to an IUD. And that is why I don't have an IUD. And that is also why the women's tax is such bullshit. So, my mom always told me, a girl has to protect her body, she said. The subtext, no one else is going to do it. And I was trying to do that, and my body did something I couldn't control. And it's doing something I can't control now. I think that's why they call it birth control, because so much of a woman's life is made up of things you can't do anything about. You can't do anything about your period. You can't do anything about cramps and how much they hurt. You can't do anything about those ads telling you that you're not thin enough or pretty enough. And you can't do anything when you go outside and men shout at you and then sometimes they follow you home. And you can't do anything when the guy you're fucking pulls off the condom during sex and comes inside you without asking, and then afterwards he says, you're on birth control, right? But when to get pregnant, when to have sex for fun, that's something women should be able to control. We fucking earned it. And that is why it's such a violation that a man who is a sexual predator is going to get a seat on the Supreme Court. Suicide first. That is the topic of tonight's discussion. So the play talks about this phenomenon of sex dolls in Japan. How in Japan, rather than interact with real women, men are buying these dolls. Not just to have sex with them, they dress them up, they take them out on dates, they tuck them in at night. And it made me think of a story I thought was so romantic when I was younger, Pygmalion. The first time I read it, I was so swept away by the romance. Pygmalion just wants someone to love him, so he made his perfect playmate, and he got his happy ending when she came to life. It wasn't until I was older that I thought, what about her? What was her name? Oh, Galatea, but that's it. The play isn't about her. But what did she want? And did she like coming into self-actualization only to be tied down to this man she just met? What happened 2 years or 10 years down the line when she was no longer beautiful? When she started forming opinions and having thoughts? It's easy to love a statue. A statue doesn't bleed, it doesn't feel pain, it doesn't have needs, it doesn't speak. I feel like there's a reason Pygmalion is one of those stories that keeps on getting recycled, and it's currently on Broadway right now in 2 different variations. And also why men prefer the company of dolls, or virtual women to real women. We're taught a woman must be like a doll. And actually Asian beauty standards aren't that different from Western beauty standards. As you know, I grew up in both environments. It's, its commonalities are be thin, be white, be young, be quiet, smile. I didn't have an orgasm until I was 21 because I was told that my power was between my legs and who I chose to open them for. I was ashamed of my body and how messy it is and all the things I felt that I couldn't say. Sadness, desire, rage. And one of the biggest lies that the patriarchy has told women is that our pain is normal and deserved and we can't ever talk about it. We should accept our lack of power in life because to be a woman is to suffer. A girl has to protect her body, my mom said. Something else she also told me. A girl needs to speak softly and quietly. And if you ever meet my mom or any other elderly Asian woman, you would not describe her as quiet. She has no concept of an indoor voice, and she speaks in commands. I could choose to be the woman she wants me to be, or be the woman that my mom actually is. Someone who is loud, entrepreneurial, a war survivor, who asks for what she wants and who speaks up when she's in pain. I mean, we're all choosing which woman we want to be right now. And for me, I choose a real woman with a bleeding vagina and a very loud, powerful mouth. Thank you.
If you want to, we're going to have a quick conversation following that. One of the things about studio visits is the artists don't know what their invited respondent is going to do or say. So and neither do I, and neither do you. So we all get to sort of learn and enjoy and experience together. So thank you so much. And thank you all. We're going to jump right into a quick Q&A. We have, I think, probably about 10 minutes because then after that we are all en masse going to stand up and walk into the next studio visit. But right now all I ask is that you really obey the idea of a question and answer, which is to say no statements, no preambles, just questions. Because the more we ask questions, the more we create a space for everybody to engage, everybody to enjoy. Okay? So does anyone have any questions for these artists here? Great, yes, please.
Describe your relationship with an audience that doesn't look like you. So, like, or an audience that an audience member doesn't come from the experience you're making work for them.
So she said, please describe your experience of performing for an audience that doesn't look like you or doesn't come from your experience.
I think that is something I am, and I too, like in considering the production of this piece, something we're really grappling with, and I struggle with too, because I don't, like we always ask, like, will these cultural images translate? And I just don't know. Like I remember bringing in this play as to a writing group, and we read the first part, and the writing group was predominantly white, and they didn't know that a lot of the elements in there were real, or things that actually exist in Japanese culture. So that's, yeah, I mean, as personally as a performer, it's something that I'm just used to now. Like this, I mean, the downtown scene is very white, so it's something I think have like tailored or work like it's always something I'm kind of like finessing in here. I don't know if that answers your question.
It's definitely something that we have talked about a lot in our rehearsal, in our development process. The thing is, like, there's no way for us to predict who's going to be in the audience, right? There's no way for me to be like, oh, well, I think it's going to be this kind of audience or that kind of audience. And so rather than waste our time in trying to make assumptions about who's going to be there, I am really taking this play as this artist's journey into investigating her own identity and herself, and hopefully that there are things that arise from that journey that resonate with people no matter who they are.
Yeah.
Or even in writing.
In writing. I mean, I don't really. I'm always hoping that I'm talking to an audience that looks like me or sympathetic. Can't ever predict that. And I have written things about social justice and about things that people are not allowed to do or should not be doing, and have gotten very passionate responses from people who help me on a basis. So it's right for me. It's trying to stay authentically myself and authentic to my convictions, while acknowledging that to put it out there can be a dangerous or a very sensitive act, and to make use of that.
Any other questions?
Kristine, this is the first show that you've worked on with your mom, and can you just share more about what the experience was like working creatively with your mom?
Yeah, I actually worked with her before this play. She had started dancing Butoh in Seattle about 3 or 4 years ago, and when I found out about that, I couldn't help myself. I was like, oh, we gotta do something together. And so at the time I had a residency at Max, and I invited her to New York for 2 weeks, and we tried it out, and it was hell. It was so bad. We were crying every day. And I learned that, I was like, oh my this is going to be great. Like, we're going to come to the room as equals for once. And just that mother-daughter relationship just cut through everything. So now, on this play, that was a conversation, pretty kind of drawn-out conversation that I had with Aya, because first I wasn't even going to perform in this play, and then Aya suggested that, and then we started talking about my mom, and so now, yeah, I'm taking a lot of, well, first I have this wonderful, like, facilitator person who's like shepherding us into the collaboration. And then, yeah, I'm learning how to take space for myself to make sure I can be present with my mom, because this play is not going to fix our relationship and the distance that exists because of our language barrier, but it's an attempt at connecting with her, and I feel very lucky to have this Japanese community that is actually, a community that my mom feels very comfortable in, but I actually feel uncomfortable in, and it's this amazing kind of switch, because I've always led us growing up in this country.
Any other questions?
Well, like we were talking about at the beginning of the evening, I think that for me personally, working on this play, but specifically opening up this artistic relationship between Kristine and myself has really shifted my world. I mean, I have to say that, I was just talking to Kristine about this earlier, but like, we're so, I don't know who I mean when I say we, but at least I have felt so, like, typically closed and competitive, like, oh, there's that grant that I want, or I don't want to be compared to that other Japanese playwright, or, like, there's all these things that happen when you're an artist in an ecosystem, right? And I think my meeting Kristine has compelled me to become open and like reaching out to this cast and this growing this community, and with Denise's help to really find ways for us to support each other's work beyond this play. I mean, now I feel like, in terms of Kristine and myself, like she's in a play that I'm writing, and so we're kind of like tumbling into like a larger artistic universe, which is scary and wonderful.
Yeah.
Can I sort of turn that question to you? It was such a beautiful composition, and I wonder what happens to that composition. Is that a thing that you just hold, or did that inspire another kind of writing for you? Is it something you'll ever return to? What comes next for that?
Apparently it's on live streams.
I was just so compelled by the themes in it, because it has been something that I've been thinking a lot about in terms of my own history as someone who feels very repressed. Related. So.
Thank you. Your writing was such a gift. it takes. Like now with like, 2020 hindsight, I can look back and say, oh my God, there was this period of time where, I didn't want to be in the things I was writing. And it was really in kind of receiving support. I mean, through collaborators, through friends, like feeling confident enough to sit inside the piece and just the time that it takes to step up to that plate. Because now it feels so right, and I don't know. And I mean, the script also has changed so much over the 2 years, and has become way more personal in that way, and it's a bigger risk for me in that way too. But yeah, it was right.
We have time for one more question. Yeah, thank you.
Could you share with us something of the writing process, and has it evolved since this collaboration has taken shape?
Yes, the writing process has shifted a lot, and it really, the writing process shifts as the trust between the two of us go deeper, and so the way Aya gives me edits, or we are able to kind of like start at a deeper understanding right away. At the get-go, I feel Aya's commitment to the play as an artist that kind of opens me up to really consider the changes, or not even changes, it's just, it's like always a discussion, it feels like now. Like now the play feels also about our relationship, and not just this thing that came out of me. In terms of just personal writing, I tend to just regurgitate, like it comes out really quick, the play itself. And I rarely take, it's rarely like little changes at a time, but it's all kind of a big push.
Well, thank you so much. It was a real honor to have this time with you and for all that you shared. Thank you all for being here. As I mentioned, we have another studio visit with Dan Safer, with Jane Comfort as the critical respondent. But let's just one more time thank the artists. Our next event starts in 4 minutes in the Segal, so follow me.